Just having a appointment shortly after our business day, so we will try to accommodate that. It is a request for a 4 o'clock dismissal. Okay, very good, thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Resume. Thank you.
Mr. Stangeland, I think where we left off is we were in Clearfield, Pennsylvania. You had indicated that you were going to make sure that Jeff Mueller didn't make it back to Billy Barger, or if he was turned over to the Hells Angels, that you would get some sort of assistance for him, correct? Around the Clearfield area, the boys, you knew the chief there?
I never planned to turn him over to the Hells Angels anywhere.
Never planned to turn him over in Clearfield?
No.
What were you going to do in Clearfield?
Basically just drive away from him and go to the police station and divorce.
So you were sitting, according to your direct testimony, at some store, convenience store, some parking lot out there for, what'd you say, 45 minutes to an hour?
Yes.
Just waiting to see if you saw Hells Angels, so as soon as you saw them, you could then take off and go to the police department?
That's all I could think of to do.
Okay. And then you went to the next town up, did the same thing, waited for about 45 minutes to an hour
The next exit, whatever that one was.
to see if you could see somebody from the Hells Angels?
Or anyone. They knew supposedly what we were driving, but I had no idea what they were.
Why would you go through that whole charade? Why not just go straight to the police department? Why are you sitting around waiting for the Hells Angels?
I didn't know what to do.
I gotta go to the police department, like you said you were gonna do.
That really wasn't an option with the guys I had with me. I didn't know what they'd be sending back text messages or emails.
Okay, well then, how would it have been an option for you after you saw the Hells Angels?
That's just the only thing I could think of to do.
It was what? I'm still trying to figure out what you were gonna do. What were you gonna do?
If they approached
If you're
you-
waiting around in a parking lot, 45 minutes to an hour, what is it that you're gonna do at that point in time?
If someone would have approached, I'd have just drove off while they were out of the vehicle.
Now, you heard the testimony in this case that the plan was to turn over Jeff Mueller to the Hells Angels, at which point he would have been, I think, wrapped up in a sleeping bag, chains weighted down, thrown in a river. Do you recall hearing that?
That wasn't the plan.
What was the plan?
It was just no definite plan at all, except for the part of picking him up and then heading back toward Clearfield. It wasn't definitely determined that the sleeping bag thing there. Barton just talked about that on different occasions.
All right, let's talk about that. So you heard some discussion about that.
Yes,
What did you hear?
that he had done that previously.
Okay. And what did you think of? Let me ask it this way. At the time you're in Clearfield, Pennsylvania, do you have Jeff Mueller's account information?
Yes.
Right. You have his date of birth, you have his social security number, you have his Lakeland Bank account information, you have his QuickBooks account information, correct?
Yes, I think that's what, I didn't see the computer myself, but I think that's what it said.
Everything there is to have about Jeff Mueller and his financial situation you have in your possession. What's the purpose then of even turning him over to the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club?
There
I mean,
was none.
There wasn't, right? Other than to possibly dispose of him.
That's why I wasn't going to turn him over.
Can you think of any logical explanation other than killing Jeff Mueller why you would be turning him over to the Hells Angels?
I never was going to turn him over to the Hells
That's not the question, sir. The question is, can you think of any other logical explanation other than he was going to be killed as to why you would turn him over? You have everything. You have all the account information.
There's nothing else to get now.
Right. So there is no other explanation other than Jeff is going to be killed at that point in time. And if there is, please tell the jury.
I don't know.
I want to give you an opportunity, a fair opportunity, to come up with another explanation if there is one. You can think of one.
I don't know.
Is
It
there
was
an
never
explanation
discussed
out
to
there?
that point.
Sir, can you think of any other explanation or can't you?
I don't know.
So the answer is no. You can't think of
I
another explanation.
don't know.
This threat that you're responding to, this alleged threat, Sir, it's not even real. Isn't that true? It's not even an actual threat, as it turns out.
I didn't know that at the time.
It's not the question. It's not a real threat, is it?
It was at the time.
As you sit here today, was that a real threat or was it?
At the time it was.
As you sit here today, was it a real threat or wasn't it?
I know now that it was not.
That's correct. So it was a fake threat. It wasn't even real.
I didn't know that at the time.
I understand. Let's talk about your belief in that threat and whether that was a sensible or reasonable belief. In looking back, would you agree with me that there were some signs, maybe some pretty obvious signs, that Billy Barger was not who he said he was? No?
I believed it.
You knew him for 10 to 12 years, right?
Something that, I don't know the exact date, but somewhere around the year 2000, so maybe 9 at that time. 9.5. 10. I don't know.
The detective asked you in that entire period of time that you knew him if he had a reputation around town. Do you remember being asked that question?
Yes.
And what was your response? Do you remember?
Not exactly, no.
If you could go to page 40 of the June 28, 2010 transcript. You recall saying that Billy Barger really didn't have much of a reputation at all around town? Except for maybe the last few months before this kidnapping when he started to get into a lot of meth,
Yes.
right?
Yes, I see that now, yes.
Okay, so this person that you knew for 10, 12 years, to you, all it was a guy who owned a cell phone store, or a few cell phone stores, right?
And he had said on more than one occasion that he was supposed to be there working this normal job, playing phone.
Okay. You had a friend, did you not, named John in South Dakota where you grew up?
Yes.
What was John's last name? Barger? You were pretty close with John?
I knew it. Because he was a couple years older or whatever. We didn't really socialize that much. But I knew it.
Did you know if John was connected to the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club?
No, I didn't.
You didn't know whether he was or not? Take a look at page 5 of your January 14, 2010 statement. At one point, did you tell the police that your friend John was definitely connected to the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club?
I don't know if I said definitely.
All right, what did you say? Page 5.
Right there.
Should be on the bottom of the page. Is it your testimony that you don't recall whether he was or was not?
The only time I remember asking him once, I think I was about, I don't remember, 17, and he was 19 or whatever, and he said no, he wasn't.
Did John look like Billy Barger?
Somewhat, yes.
Did you tell the police that they could have been brothers?
Yes.
And did Billy Barger tell you that, in fact, your friend John, this guy that you grew up with in South Dakota, was his cousin?
Yes.
So your friend John, if Billy Barger was related to Sonny Barger, your friend John also was related to Sonny Barger.
Yes.
With one call to John, you could have verified if Billy Barger's claim was in fact true, correct?
Yes.
And in fact, you knew how to get in touch with John, didn't you? You
Yes.
told the police that you had his phone number.
Yes.
All you had to do was place one phone call
Yes.
and ask.
Yes.
What happened when you did that?
I did not do it
Why not?
because I was told not to. You don't bother someone with his at his position or his level.
What was his level with the Hells Angels?
According to Billy Barger, he was Sergeant of Arms of World Council.
Did the Hells Angels, did they even have a World Council? Is there such a thing?
I don't know.
So the Hells Angels, they have their own website. Did you know that?
No,
Did you ever think of Googling the Hells Angels?
I was told not to.
Not to Google the Hells Angels?
Yes.
Why?
So it would not trace back to me or my computer.
What difference would it make if it traced back to your computer?
So law enforcement would not notice an affiliation.
Sir, anybody in this courtroom could Google the Hells Angels, doesn't mean that they're affiliated with them.
But I was told not to.
Did that seem odd to you?
I didn't know what to think. With the way he was coming at this rule and that rule, and don't do this, don't do that, or it'll be that. It was always some sort of threat like that.
Did Billy tell you that his father's son actually went to basic training with his dad?
Yes,
And you asked your dad about that, right?
yes.
And what'd your dad say?
He remembered somebody going from Madison, but he couldn't remember what their name was. And that was the next town that they rode the train or whatever, but he couldn't remember what his name was.
You knew Billy's wife, right, Sherry?
It's somewhat, yes,
And they had a child, a daughter?
yes.
In 10 plus years, however long you knew Billy, did anyone, Billy, Sherry, the child, anybody in the family ever meet Sonny Barger?
I don't know.
You know from talking to Deputy Sloot that the only club Billy Barger actually belonged to was the Shriners, right?
Yes,
The 81 that was tattooed on his hand,
yes,
you knew for 10 years that didn't say 81, right?
right,
That was just an S,
yes,
correct?
yes.
Standing for what?
Sheriff,
And on what finger was that?
his ring finger.
Did anything ever raise a question in your mind?
That he wasn't who he played? Not at the time, no.
Did you do anything yourself to investigate what he was telling you?
No,
Billy Barger often used to claim that at any moment's notice, he could have 150 Hells Angels, 250 Hells Angels show up just like that, right?
100 usually was his number. But yes.
100 was his number. How many times did he make that claim?
To the sheriff and deputy of Bates County,
Okay.
uh,
How about the road, slates?
yes, I don't remember if he used a number of 100 or 150. I don't remember the exact numbers, but he made it on several occasions. He made it to me a few times. He made it to others. When they would say that they didn't want to be involved with his ideas and whatever, he'd fly off the handle and have first threats and want to come and kill them.
So these various times when he may have said this, and the Clearfield situation, where he said that there would be Hells Angels that would reach out there and they never showed up, correct? He also indicated that somebody by the name of Deacon, I think he testified, would show up and help you out, and that never happened. All these times, when he said he was going to produce Hells Angels, on how many occasions did he actually produce a single Hells Angel?
None.
Zero. Looking back on it, shouldn't that have raised a question in your mind?
Didn't know what to think. Because it's like Deacon, he was supposed to just make sure we did our job. Not to help anybody.
But supposedly, it's the famed Sonny Barger, right? Who's pulling the strings behind all this?
Supposedly.
The guy who started the Oakland chapter of the Hells Angels back in 1957, the guy who's been the face of the organization for the past several decades, he's supposing involving himself in some kidnapping here. And yet, Billy, his son, can't even produce, at any time, a single Hells Angels member.
No. There was always an excuse.
That never prompted you to check with your friend John, do any investigation yourself? Maybe you had all these friends that were in the police department to check with any of them?
Always, the threat was always there.
Did Billy tell you that the Hells Angels was traded on the New York Stock Exchange?
Yes,
That raised a question in your mind?
I never looked it up just for the fact of we weren't supposed to look up anything.
Billy told you that there were chapters of the Hells Angels in Des Moines, Iowa, and Omaha, correct?
No,
You didn't?
no, he just said that they were there.
That they were there? Okay,
He
not
didn't say there was
necessarily
an
a formal
actual
chapter.
chapter, he just said that they were present.
You realize that Deputy Schlute was able to determine that Billy Barger was not who he claimed he was pretty quickly, right?
I didn't know how to say they knew.
Well, they were aware, I guess, of who was involved in the home invasion on January 9th, correct?
I think that we told them yes.
And on January 14th, he was telling you pretty emphatically that Billy was not who he claimed he was, right?
Yes, that's what he said.
Had you gone to him prior to kidnapping Jeff Mullen, prior to invading the home of Charles Scannell, he could have cleared that up for you, true?
I don't know that.
Would you agree with me that if you yourself had done a little bit of critical analysis, a little bit of questioning, that you could have determined yourself that Billy wasn't who he said he was?
I don't know.
Would you agree with me that before you can excuse serious crimes, such as the kidnapping issue in this case, based on some sort of threat, that it's sensible and reasonable to expect a person to verify that that threat actually exists?
I have no reason not to believe it.
That's not my question. Before you can excuse serious criminal conduct, would you agree with me that a person should take some steps to verify whether that threat actually exists? Is that fair? Or do you
Never
think that's...
heard this before, I don't know.
Well, I think you're the only person in this room who did encounter it. So I'm asking you that question.
I don't
It's yes or no answer.
I don't know. I can't answer yes or no because I don't know. I never did that, so I don't know. Well, the outcome.
Well, in addition to this threat not being real or actual, didn't you tell the police that the threat to your son, to yourself, was actually something that you considered to be light? Do you remember that?
Not particularly, no.
We'll get to that. You referred to Billy Barger as a feeble man, right? Do you agree with that? A poor feeble man was the words that he used.
That's how he presented himself, yes.
He was too weak to even go up and down the steps.
That's what he presented. And wanted help and attention.
You had a fairly small arsenal of firearms in your home. Did you agree with that? How many firearms would you say that you had?
I don't know for sure, but it wasn't what I consider an arsenal.
More than 10?
Yes,
You had handguns?
yes,
You had rifles?
yes,
Shotguns?
yes.
You carried a firearm inside your house?
Not until Billy Barger arrived.
But so long as he was there, you had one on your person.
Order to, if you didn't have one, you'd get shot.
You were proficient in the use of firearms?
Yes.
Matter of fact, you indicated that you could hit your mark from at least a quarter mile away, correct?
But I've been here that distance, yes.
You also described yourself basically as Billy's muscle, right? I mean, you were there, you were his protector.
Never,
If you go to page 35 of the June 28th transcript. You indicated that one of your roles was to protect, physically protect Billy Barger from any harm.
yes,
So in actuality, in truth, the only real threat, or the only real thing backing up Billy Barger's threats was you. There was no Hell's Angels backing up his threats. You were the only actual thing backing up his threats.
No. He was threatening the Hells Angels for him.
I understand that's what he was threatening, but in truth, it was you. You were the only thing backing him up. When Billy Barger was threatening Roy Slates, who was there to protect Billy Barger?
I wasn't protecting anybody, I was just present in the room.
Did you tell the police back on June 28, 2010, that your role in that room was to protect Billy Barger from Roy Slates?
That's what Billy thought I was doing.
You told the police that that's what you were doing, didn't you?
Where are you? Adam, because that's not exactly the way it was worded.
Okay. Detective Mueller asked you, and what was your role in this? Do you see that question?
Are you on page 35 still?
Page 35, yes.
Okay.
The question, and what was your role in this?
Okay.
And he's referring to the situation involving Roy Slates at that time, when he's
Yes.
asking you that question, what's your role? And if you could read your answer to the jury, please.
Okay. I was supposed to protect Gil.
Right.
I wasn't doing nothing with either one of them, you know, like,
Okay, and then it cuts off.
yes,
So you're supposed to protect Billy.
yes, but I wasn't doing nothing to either.
Well, a gun was pointed at Roy Slates, correct?
Yes,
You would agree with me that Roy Slates could take care of Billy Barger physically pretty quickly. Would you agree with that?
yes.
Was Billy Barger harmed in any way?
No, because Roy was scared to death of me.
Well, when Billy Barger said to Roy Slates that he could have 100, 150 Hells Angels members showing up at a moment's notice, what was Roy Slates' response to that?
That he's got friends of his own, and why don't we just have a shootout?
Doesn't sound like a scared guy to me, does it?
No, and I couldn't believe at the time he actually said something like that.
The very first time you spoke to the police on January 14, 2010, take a look at page 4. The police told you to tell them about any death threats that you received, correct?
Page 4?
Yep, of the January 14, 2010 statement. What's that?
Where do you have it?
Just, you can read the whole page.
Let me read what?
Just read it to yourself, page.
Okay.
So they asked you early on that if there were any threats to you to let them know, correct?
Yes.
Now, if you go through the first 24 pages of that transcript, do you reference anywhere in those first 24 pages any threat to you whatsoever?
I don't remember the exact thing of the first 24, but I was very leery and skeptical of what they were saying, if Billy was a fake or a fraud or not.
Okay. Well, on page
Very
25,
hesitant anything at that point.
if you go to page 25 of that same transcript, so we'll skip through the first 24. You do reference, they ask you, finally, Deputy Schlup asks you, listen, Mr. Stangeland, were you ever threatened by Billy Barger? You know, did he ever point a gun at you? Did he ever threaten you in any way? You see that? I know it's a little bit difficult because some of this transcript is inaudible.
But are you up toward the top or?
Yeah, up towards the top, actually.
Okay, whether,
You referenced 2 times when Billy threatened you with a gun, correct?
yes, but I guess I shouldn't say yes because I don't know exactly which one you're referring to here. But
Well, rather than go to the transcript, let me ask you this, because you just may remember. How many times did Billy actually threaten you?
I'm not sure the exact number, whether it's in text message, email, through someone else.
How about physically? Did he ever point a gun at you?
Yes,
And when was that? That was twice, right? Before he got divorced from his wife? And before he ever came to live at your house?
right in that neighborhood, yes, yes.
So that was well before any of this.
Not well before, just shortly before, like
That
a
had-
week or 10 days.
That had nothing to do with this kidnapping, had nothing to do with the home invasion, correct?
No,
It had to do with you disrespecting him and speaking negatively about him, correct?
that's what he thought, yes.
Right. Were you doing that?
No,
At no time did he ever put a gun to your head and threaten you with respect to the home invasion or
no.
the kidnapping, correct?
He threatened my son and my dad,
But never physically. He never did anything to physically harm either one of them, right?
yes,
He did harm? Physically
Yeah.
harm?
yes.
Actually, Mr. Morrison asked you that exact question during your direct examination. You said no.
He did physically harm my son,
What did he do?
but he never touched my dad.
Okay. What did he do to your son?
Punched him in the stomach, and I'm not sure exactly what else, because it's still difficult for my son to even talk.
When did that happen?
After he moved in and taken over the house. So like in July, August of '09.
How long did he continue to live there after that?
My son didn't tell me it had happened, because he didn't want to see me get in trouble, just the way he told me to get in trouble.
When did you find out about it?
After this all happened,
After this all happened?
yes, after with Mr. Muller.
So the fact that your son may have been punched in the stomach by Billy Barger played no role whatsoever in your decision with regard to this case, right?
Not what was going on, no.
Right, because he didn't even
Because
know
I didn't
about
know what happened.
it. Gotcha. So were you aware prior to this kidnapping of any physical harm to your son? Or
Just the threats, and that Derek didn't want to be at the house at all, so I got him moved in with his mother. And away from the house, and that's why we went to Florida, just to get him away. Because he just, every reason in the world not to want to be there.
Let's talk about that for a minute. I think you testified on direct that when you were in Florida that you know it was okay to go to Florida to escape Billy Barger, that you were with your son and your dad was safe. How is it that your dad was safe?
He was at his house, and Derek and I were out of town, so there was nothing that I was being directed or whatever told to do, that if I didn't do it properly, there would be harm coming to Dad. We were away. So I couldn't,
All you had to do to remove yourself from this threat was to move away?
well, it was difficult. I had to come up with a very legitimate reason why we were going to Florida. And I came up with one and managed to get out of town with my son with me.
But you came back.
Yes.
And you came back, if I understand your testimony, because your car got broken into?
We ran out of money, yes, and didn't know what else to do. And then I was told I had to come back because things weren't finished yet.
What would have prevented you from putting your dad in the car with you and bringing him to Florida?
He was having a lot of back trouble at the time and couldn't stay on the ride.
Back trouble.
Back, yeah, lower back trouble. He ended up having surgery on it. And he never did fully recover before he passed.
How about putting him on a plane? Was he able to fly?
I didn't have the funds for that, and I didn't know how to explain it to him on what was going on,
Well,
or why he would need to do that. Because I didn't want to tell him what was going on.
why not? Why not just tell him the truth?
I didn't want to get him involved.
Well, he wouldn't be in any danger, would he? Just, Billy Barton wouldn't have to know that we told him?
But the way my dad was, he probably approached Billy and asked him what he thought he was doing or what he was up to. My dad was a very direct type, right straight to the point person.
How far do you think your dad could have made it
I don't know,
in a car?
because when I take him to the VA hospital in Kansas City, which is 100 miles away roughly, he was having a lot of trouble by the time we got there. And then I escorted him around there because he couldn't stand the walk.
So you could have done this in 100-mile increments, is what you're saying?
No, he just plain and simple would not be willing to get in and go anywhere that wasn't absolutely necessary because he was in so much pain.
Even if you described this threat to him, and this imminent threat,
I don't know what he would have done
why didn't you bother to try and ask?
because I didn't want him to say anything that would make it worse.
But you have your son out in Florida, and you decide to come back
Yes,
to Billy Barton.
that's ordered to. Get back here, I need you, things aren't getting done.
Are there any Hells Angel chapters in Florida?
I have no idea, I've never seen it.
Is there any law enforcement in Florida?
Yes, of course.
You've had the option of going to law enforcement anywhere from Nevada, Missouri, to Florida, and anywhere in between, correct?
Yes.
The entire purpose of the second interview on January 18th
Right.
is to provide more information about the threats that Billy Barton made, correct?
Yes.
Let's start with the handwritten statement. And just take a moment, you can read through it. I don't know if you remember what you wrote. Anywhere there do you mention a specific threat to either your dad or your son?
Not in this particular few pages, no.
In the January 18th statement, do you mention any specific threat to your son or your dad?
I don't remember exactly what's in it.
Isn't it true that the first time you talk about it is in the June 28th statement to Detective Mueller? And I'll refer you to page 28 of that statement.
No, I talked about it, the original on January 14th.
outside of the generic statement that he threatened my dad or my son, generally, did you provide any specificity prior at any time?
I don't remember whether or not.
Go to the June 28th statement, page 28. And again, just like your testimony here today, you said something bad would happen to your son if you didn't do what Billy said, right?
Yes.
And how do you describe that threat on June 28th, 2010? And I'll refer you down about 2/3 of the way down. It says, but you know. You see that? It was just kind of. You call it a light threat, don't you?
Yes, because he just kind of said in passing.
Right.
But if you've been around him for a while, you know what he meant by it.
You said it in passing. It's a light threat. You did all of this based on something said in passing, some light threat.
No. Because he said many times about killing the 237, we didn't have a problem with 238.
Well, you go on and you talk about Billy's threats as, you know, schoolyard type stuff, right? That's how you
That's what
describe it.
I later realized to be, yes. But at the time, I took him wholeheartedly.
Sir, this is always just words, right? It's what he's saying.
Not necessarily. He assaulted several people.
With regard to you, your son, and your father, it's just words, right?
No, he assaulted my son.
Yeah, but you didn't know that.
Not at the time.
I'm saying you committed this act based on a threat to you, your son, and your father.
Yes,
And it was just words.
but I didn't know that at the time.
My question is, it was just words, right?
But I didn't know it.
Not my question. I didn't ask you
I
what
know-
you did or
I know
didn't
that.
know. I'm
But
asking
I didn't know at the time. So I didn't feel it was just words at the time. I truly believed he would follow through with his threats or have them committed by somebody else the way he did it.
nothing was imminent though, right? I mean,
I did not know.
you thought he was gonna kill your father and your son on the spot, but you were standing right there.
I didn't know what he would do or what he was capable of.
What steps did you tell your son all about these threats to him?
No.
You didn't?
Why,
You supposedly had this threat to your son, you didn't even warn him?
how would you tell a 15-year-old that this guy's threatening to kill you if I don't do whatever? I didn't even tell him what I was doing.
So your testimony serves that you did not even warn your son.
No, the testimony is I did not tell him what I was doing to,
Did you warn your son? Yes or no?
no.
Did you warn your father?
I told him to keep an eye open if anybody was around or whatever. He asked me why, and I just said there've been a lot of people breaking into cars and burglaries lately.
So you told him to look out for prowlers,
Yes,
somebody that might break into his car. That was it.
or house. Keep an eye on, things that don't look right.
You didn't feel the need to warn him about this specific, imminent, dangerous threat.
I didn't know what to say.
There were other options for your son, were there not, for places for him to live?
That's why I got to move to his mother's, yes.
Why didn't you do that right away?
It took a while to get her convinced that this is what needed to happen.
She didn't want to have your son with her?
Not so much that, it just, I don't remember the exact things, but all the,
This picture. Mr. Morrison showed that to you and asked you if you were wearing red and white, right?
yeah.
You said that you were not?
No, I didn't say that.
Okay. Are you wearing red and white in that picture?
The bandana thing on the head, yes.
Was it your testimony that the purpose of that picture was to send it to Sonny Barger so he would know who is in this Hells Angels chapter?
That's what Billy said needed to be done, yes.
And your son's in that picture?
That's Billy. He didn't want to be. I didn't want him to be.
Why would you
Billy
let
said he
him?
had to be.
You were okay with a picture of your son going to Sonny Barger as being a member of the club?
No, I wasn't at all, and he was never a member.
I
It
know,
was
but
supposed to just be family or support, whatever Barger called it at the time.
But you were okay with Sonny Barger knowing what your son looked like?
I didn't know what to do at the time. It isn't like I willingly said, come on, do this, it's gonna be fun. No, I never did that.
And Billy ordered you to call your son Youngblood, but you wouldn't do that, right?
He basically just said, call him this. He never, but I never did.
You refused, right? You refused something Billy told you to do.
I did many things. That's why he was,
And we're going to talk about that extensively shortly. But for right now, with regard to your son, Billy told you, ordered you to call him Youngblood, and you didn't do that, right?
no,
Why didn't you refuse him when he asked you to have your son post in that picture?
said that I had to get Derek over there special at the time because he'd been with some friends. I don't know what they were doing, but I had to go pick him up and bring him over special to do that because Billy wouldn't have it any other way.
Billy wanted you to call him Youngblood too, but you wouldn't do that. Why refuse one order but not another?
I felt like I was pushing it too far, and he was getting upset, getting red in the face and clenching his fist, and I just didn't want to push him any further.
Wouldn't it be better to just go along with calling your son Youngblood, just in front of the folks there in the house, than it would be sending a photo of what your son looked like to Sonny Barger, the author of all these supposed threats?
I just couldn't make myself do that.
Sir, go to page 51 of June 28th statement. Now, on page 51, you talk about the threat that you felt on June 8th, the day of the kidnapping, that morning. And you said that with some specificity to Detective Mueller, that the threat that you felt, the best you could remember, that's a phrase you used, right? Best you could remember.
I don't know where you're at exactly.
Where is that? Did you see that?
Yes,
All right, just read through it. Read down a few lines.
yes, and as much as near as I can remember, if we felt that morning, we were gonna get hit ourselves, if we did not get this all.
So the threat was to you yourself, right?
Yes,
You don't mention your father and your son there.
not at that particular time, no.
Before this Scammell home invasion, where was your son living?
At the house with me.
Go to page 46 of that transcript. See where it says, where's your son at this point? And we're talking about the Scammell home invasion now?
Okay, I didn't keep track of the time, I said he was with his mother.
Okay. Your testimony today is he was where at the time of the Scammell home invasion?
I thought he was with me, but I guess he was with his mother's. I don't, it's so long ago, I don't remember the exact date and times of
Okay.
what I did in October, November 2009.
Is it fair to say before the first attempt to kidnap Jeff Mueller, your son is no longer living with Billy Barger and you?
Yes,
And also the second kidnapping attempt?
yes,
So he's now removed from any imminent threat from Billy Barger?
I've got him out of the house, but he's still a mile and a half from Billy.
It's a mile and a half from Billy.
Yes,
And how many miles away is your dad?
with my dad.
Is your dad? Yeah, how far away is
He
he?
was about a mile and a half at that time too.
Didn't you say when you were at Rick's C-store and you thought Billy Barger was on the way, you knew it was safe because there was no imminent threat to your son? Because
Billy was
on the
not
road?
in Nevada at that time, and he was almost 100 miles away. So he could not get to either one of them to do anything at that time.
Do you have any relatives that live more than a mile away, mile and a half away?
No.
Any friends or relatives? Nobody?
No, not really. All the relatives are in South Dakota and other states.
Okay, but you have relatives in South Dakota.
Yes.
What happened when you called them and said, look, can my son stay with you for a while? Because, I've got a situation here and I'm a little concerned about him. Is it okay if he stays with me for a while? What happened when we did that?
Well, my oldest son was starting a new job as a manager of a fertilizer company here in South Dakota, and they just had a baby born, and him and his wife. And what Chris, my oldest son, said is he didn't have time to keep track of Derek and his new job, his wife, and new baby. So,
So you did ask.
yes, I did.
Uh,
I did ask him, I was gonna move him to South Dakota, and that was, my other relatives are all up in their 80s and 90s now, besides getting out into cousins and whatnot, they're my age. But no, my oldest son is 10 years older than Derek, and at the time, he just, no, I don't have time, I can't handle it right now.
do you think if you had explained the situation to him, he might have made time?
I didn't want to get him involved.
Would he have blabbed it too, even if he told him
I
not to?
don't know. That just is. I didn't want to, he wasn't, Billy Barger didn't even know about him because I was never married to his mother, and he doesn't have my last name.
So I'm having trouble with, if you were to explain to your own son or father, and look, here's the situation, if you say anything about this, it will endanger all of us, that there's not a single person in your family, not your father, not your own kids, nothing, nobody that you can trust.
I didn't want to get him involved to that degree. I was doing what I had to do to protect him.
You were the one who brought Billy Barger to the house.
It wasn't my idea, but yes, he came to the house.
Sir, he requested to come and you said okay.
And it would be very greatly appreciated by the family.
That's
So
right.
how do you turn that down?
You say no. That's how you turn it down.
And you can get shot for that.
Really?
Yes. That's what I was.
Did he threaten you? Did he threaten to shoot you if you said no?
Not
He
at
did,
that
didn't he?
time.
Right.
But it was explained later that there's no saying no.
It was explained
when
later.
when you're asked, it's not that it's a yes or no option. It's like you're basically being told this is what you're going to do.
When you first allowed Billy Barger to come into your home, let's go over the circumstances of that again. It was after he had just threatened a sheriff's officer, correct?
Yes.
Deputy
Yes.
Moreland.
Yes.
And what, you say the chief or the sheriff of Bates County?
Yes.
And he was concerned that they would come looking for him, right?
Yes.
That he might be subject to an arrest.
Yes.
So you're actually harboring a fugitive at that point, or what you think is going to be a fugitive?
I didn't think about that at all. I didn't want him to come to the house, but what could I do? He just,
A guy who had told you how dangerous he was, a guy who had killed 237 people, a guy who had just threatened the sheriff of Bates County and the deputy, who believes the police are after him. You think it's a good idea to bring this guy into your house with your 15-year-old son?
the deputy didn't say that they were coming after him, and he had the opportunity to there right on the spot if he would have wanted to. And Barger had not made the comment about the 237 at that time yet. But I didn't know what to do. But when you're told the family would really appreciate if you let me come and stay.
The family would appreciate it. That's it. That was the extent of what was said to you at that point.
I don't remember the rest of it, but I was him hauling around or dragging my feet like, no, we've got to get up early in the morning, we've got to do this, we've got to do that. And he just wouldn't have it. It was a Saturday night and like, well, what do you have to do on Sunday? And so that's picking up Dad and we were going to a shoot. And, well, I'll get up and leave when you get up. It was just,
You testified before that you disobeyed Billy Barger on many occasions, right? What happened to you when you disobeyed him? I mean, you're obviously still here with us. It's amazing you survived. How did you survive disobeying Billy Barger?
emails and text messages with threats. If you don't do that again, you got lucky this time, we'll overlook it.
What, anything ever happened to your son when you disobeyed him?
Not directly that I know of, no.
How about your father?
No. Threats were made to me, but not to him directly.
You had various, I'll call them misadventures during this. Your first kidnapping trip out here to New Jersey, you couldn't rent a car because you just had a prepaid debit card, right?
Yes.
Lonnie had the problem with the insulin. You had to ultimately abort that mission, right?
Right.
The Scapple home invasion, Billy Barger told you that there would be at least $50,000 to $100,000 at that house, right?
Yes.
And he viewed that as a failure on your part not to recover any money, correct?
That's how we presented it, yes.
With all of these failures, were you ever harmed yourself physically?
But I was threatened, but no, I was not harmed. A lot of sleepless nights.
During the first kidnapping trip, Billy Barger ordered you to conduct a home invasion, similar to the Scamell home invasion at Jeff Miller's house, right?
Yes.
You refused to do that. Is that correct? No ramifications with regard to that, right?
No, he just was not very happy at all on the, like I say, threats on emails and text messages.
During the second kidnapping mission or trip, you were supposed to kidnap Jeff Muller on the first day, right?
Yes.
You didn't accomplish that at either his home or store, is that right?
Yes.
And then you were ordered, I think you said, to conduct a carjacking,
Yes.
and you didn't do that.
No.
So you refused all of those things.
It made it look like it was just bad luck or whatever, that we couldn't get it accomplished.
You made it look that way?
But trying my best to follow up everything I possibly could all the way through the whole thing. I'd have been happy driving back to Missouri with nobody, so.
So why didn't you do that? I mean,
Because we were told we were being followed.
was there any evidence of that?
Yes.
What?
Emails and text messages saying, while you're there at, I don't know, just make up Pizza Hut, for example, why don't you bring whatever back to the house? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Be here right at the grocery store now, stop and pick up this. He knew the locations of where we were.
But nobody was actually watching.
We didn't know that at the time, but he should present it that way.
But if you had all these failures, why did you think one more would have made a difference?
I have no idea. I don't know.
There were times you got mad at Billy Barger yourself, right? And you kind of told him off,
Not very in-depth, no.
right?
I would suggest, maybe, but I did a lot of hesitating, but I never really came at him.
Did you ever get mad at him?
Well, of course,
Did you ever let him know you were mad at him?
not very, I tried to conceal it.
Did you ever?
Like I said, I tried to conceal it. So I tried to keep everything under wraps the best I could.
Go to page 40 of your January 14th, 2010 statement. remember telling the police that on one occasion Billy Barger moved your guns? And you got very upset with him? And you yelled at him, no, 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 you don't ever touch my stuff, you don't ever touch my guns? And Billy Barger was almost apologetic towards you?
He was not apologetic.
Well, what did he say after you got angry with him? Started to yell at him?
Where are you exactly? And we said something about scratches more than anything else. They're not going to get scratched or anything like that. if that's
Right in
what
the
you're
very
doing.
top paragraph.
Okay.
It is a difficult transcript to follow. There's a lot of articles on it. And he said, you don't worry about it, there's no scratches, nothing will happen to your guns. He's almost apologetic towards you.
No, I wouldn't take that as apologetic to him because he was saying, don't worry about it. There's no scratches going to be on.
Let me ask you this.
Because he never said he was sorry or apologized to you.
Let me ask you this. You were able to stand up to Billy Barger, basically yell at the guy when it came to your guns. Why couldn't you do that when it came to your own kid and your dad?
I didn't yell at him.
You stood up to him though, didn't you?
I asked him what the hell he thought he was doing.
You care more about your guns than your
No, I
son.
did not.
Why don't you ever stand up to him for your son?
I didn't know that's what had happened at the time.
Phil Lucero was once a member of your club, was he not?
That's what he was represented to be.
And he failed to carry out various orders for Billy Barger. Is that true?
Not that I
Was he at some point kicked out of the club?
for following up on a tattoo, yes.
All right, just for entertainment value, let's talk about that. That was tattooed to Kimberly Hunter. And what was that tattoo?
It's supposed to be property of Barger.
And what, did he spell the name wrong?
Yes. I don't remember exactly which letter he spelled wrong, but it was definitely wrong.
And Billy got upset, right?
Yes.
And he got kicked out or banished from the club.
Yeah.
And isn't it true that that was the only real penalty? If you crossed Billy Barger, if you did something that he didn't like, if you failed to carry out an order, you would be kicked out of the club. You would be kicked out of his Heartland chapter.
That's what he did with Phil. but
That's what you were worried about too, wasn't it?
No, not at all.
You liked being a member of this club, didn't you?
No, I did not.
For you, it represented status, it represented power. Is that true?
No.
You weren't forced to join. Because you talked about how it was that you came to join this club in almost every statement you gave. You were never forced. You were asked, and you said okay.
After he asked and asked and asked.
But you were never
it wasn't like
forced.
I was asking him if I could be.
What's that?
I wasn't ever asking if I could get. But I remember I was asking, why me? Why do you want me? Too old for this.
You were never forced to join, right?
No. And never was really officially a member. It never came to that.
Had you succeeded in this kidnapping mission, you would have been a member though, right?
Not that I know.
You were ordered by Billy Barger to beat up Dale Lippy, were you not?
Yes.
Who's Dale Lippy?
He's got known for over 20 years.
And you refused to do that?
Yes.
And that was because he was your friend. You didn't want to do it.
And it was before, let's say, didn't know what Billy was capable of. And
Well, you-
that really caused a lot of ripples. But I wouldn't have hit Dale anyway, for any reason.
Well, you warned Dale to stay away from
Yes.
Barger, correct?
Yes.
If you didn't know how bad Billy was, why did you want him to stay away?
Just because of who he claimed he was and whose dad was.
Now, I'm trying to understand this. Okay, you would warn Dale Lippy, because he's your friend, and you're concerned because of who Billy Barger is and who his dad is, but yet you won't warn your own son
Yes, I was.
or your own father.
I was trying to keep them away from him.
Trying to keep him away.
Yes,
So,
yes.
do that picture.
I know, I already explained that to you.
Yeah, well, explain to me how that's keeping him away.
I didn't want him in it, or me in it for that matter. We didn't have a choice.
But it is true that you warned Dale Lippy, but you didn't even bother to warn your own son or father, right?
I told him, my son, don't do anything to make him mad. Stay out of his way.
Excuse me, I think we'll take an afternoon recess. Please.